What's going on, YouTube? And welcome back here to another day in Minecraft Walt Disney World. And today we are looking at the latest news that came from Disney about Disney's Hollywood Studios. And this is a really exciting update because we're going to see some changes in Hollywood Studios that are very overdue. And I think most people, when you talk about kind of the direction of the studios, it's definitely, really since Star Wars Land came in, the theme of the whole Hollywood really theming has really been diminished. And I think that with this recent addition that we're going to see in 2026, this is really going to help bring back a little bit of that nostalgia for the MGM side of the studios, which I'm really excited for, and I think a lot of people are excited for this as well. We're going to discuss that. What exactly will be changing at the studios next year? So to start off, we're here in kind of the main section here. You've got the Chinese theater, and I think that this is a very bittersweet sort of situation. So this whole area is actually going to get demolished. So the archway is going to no longer be here, which I understand why they're doing it, but it's going to be a tough loss because in the actual one here, there is so much detail right here that the Imagineers like hand sculpted, and we're going to probably lose that, which is definitely a shame. And then there's going to be more of a kind of a nod to the Burbank studio, and we're going to have basically a giant planter right here in the middle, and then you're going to have kind of like it's kind of like a fork in the road, so you can either go this way toward Mermaid, which is going to stay open during this whole construction, and then there's going to be a new kind of Disney Junior show on this side, which is obviously very needed, because this area just doesn't really do it. This whole area really, since they took away, really since the backlot tour entrance no longer was over here, this area just feels very odd, and it's really, I would say, probably the weakest part of probably all of Walt Disney World. Like, that's how much this area is really hated by most people. So we really needed to have a facelift. So we're gonna go over just a couple of little things here that we already know are going to be confirmed. So the Magic of Disney Animation is going to be returning it to this area, which is huge. It's going to be an homage to what was here before Star Wars Launch Bay was here. Before Launch Bay, they had a full-on animation studio here. This was kind of like a little courtyard for people to kind of hang out. They used to have actual animation being made in here as well. Based off of what we're hearing, they are not bringing back the actual studio, like in terms of making the animation here again, but they are going to be bringing back the elements that were interactive for the guests. They are going to be bringing that back in this area. I'm really hoping, immediately just walking through here, because I am not a fan of Star Wars, believe it or not. So all of this stuff I've never actually seen. I've never seen this kind of stuff in here. So I wonder how they're going to kind of incorporate this space, because this used to be like in here. This is where they were like actually you could see animators like on a desk animating and creating the drawings and sketches. And then they added all the Star Wars props in here for Launch Bay. So I wonder how they're going to kind of incorporate this kind of area. I don't really know how they're going to do that exactly. Immediately, again, like I said, the stark contrast, like they need to get a better color in here because it's that like dull gray, and I would love to see them kind of adding more of a more vibrant, bright color in this area. I assume this area, for better or for worse, is going to be more character meet and greets. They're just gonna kind of change the theming from Star Wars to probably they might put like Olaf in here, who currently has a spot in I want to say by Red Carpet Dreams or something like that, Magic Carpet Dreams, something like that. So we'll probably see that over here. This is a more interactive. Yeah, you can meet BB-8 in there. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So that's It's a little bit weird over here. They could definitely do some interesting things based off of how many characters are in the poster. I mean, they have everybody in here. I wonder how much they're going to fully incorporate Mulan, Lilo and Stitch, and Brother Bear. And the reason I say that is because those three films were like almost fully created, if I'm not mistaken, fully created at the animation studio that was here. So it would make a lot of sense to have a decent amount of representation from specifically those three films. And a lot of this is based off of the kind of Disney going back to that special that came out last year, which pretty much just is. Oh, I don't think we're supposed to be back here. I don't even know how I got back here. um, that's all the parking space. But kind of, I mean, just to kind of show, I mean, this is really what's behind um, this area that's closed off to the public. I mean, this is all like studio space. And they recently showed kind of a behind the scenes of that recently. So obviously, looking back now, hindsight, it makes sense because this is kind of a throwback to that area. But let's go to Warp. Let's see if I can go to Muppets from here just to get back. Okay. Um, but yeah, I think that area is going to be very interesting with that. Then you also have a Drawn to Wonderland, which is basically Alice in Wonderland. It's going to be an oversized playground, flower garden. I think that's a really good idea. I think this is something that this park could really use, as much as it's not really something for me. This is a very needed thing, really, since they removed the Honey, I Shrunk the Audience kids play area movie set adventure. That was a really big loss for the studios. So adding something like this, yeah, it's annoying, but it's needed. And as long as they do a good job with it, I think it's okay with me. It makes me wonder though, because in the Monsters Inc. concept art, we saw a play area in that, like almost like a Sully slide. I wonder if they're going to continue that playground, which it seems like they are not going to be doing that playground, and they're going to stick it here instead, which is fine. Um, but that's kind of an interesting thing to kind of see how that's going to develop if they end up doing that playground or not in Monsters Inc. I don't remember from the last concept art if it was in there or not. But anyway, so that's another part of it. They're also, like I said, they're going to introduce a Disney Junior Play and Dance, which will close September 25th. This is going to be a new Disney Junior show, and it makes sense because a lot of the ones that are in that show right now, I think it's like Vampirina, Doc McStuffin, and Mickey's Roadsters or whatever. None of those are currently on Disney Junior, so it would make sense for Disney to create. I would assume this is where they could put Bluey if they can. This would be kind of the attraction that Bluey would make a lot of sense to add. And, the lack of Bluey presence is kind of astonishing. I think it's because of the contract agreement. I don't know if Disney's allowed to put Bluey in here. That's why they use him on the cruise ship. But we'll kind of figure out as things go along. I mean, this is going to look much nicer. They're going to add a Sorcerer Mickey hat at the top of this. You're going to still have the two pillars there. And it just looked very nice. I have to say, I'm looking forward to seeing what they do here. But again, the problem I have with these kind of changes is, my trust in Imagineering recently, it really, with the way they redid Epcot, I'm a little bit concerned. Like, I really want this to be good. I really want this to work. But Disney has to give me a reason to believe. Because back in the day, anytime Disney would change things, we would sit here and say, you know what, Disney's changing this, we don't like it, but let them cook, let them do their thing, and they'll show us why it was worth changing. But recently, they really haven't done that. A lot of times, we're like looking at the new thing, like, I kind of wish the old thing was here, and that's never a good thing. And I think for Disney, they really got to make sure they change that narrative, because I think it's definitely been something that's been holding them back from some of these, like, people getting excited and hyped for some of these new additions, because we really aren't sure what we're gonna get. It looks great in the concept art, and then on paper, it hasn't really looked like the concept art. So they really need to deliver on this. And I feel like, I feel like the curb isn't that high on this one. It's bringing back something that's old. It's not money wise really going to be that big of a thing. I mean, you're not adding a giant, floorless, trackless dark ride or anything like that, which I think this really would have been the best thing to do for this area, but I digress. I understand the reality of the Disney company right now. It's not necessarily in the budget, but to be honest with you, anything is better at this point than Launch Bay. Launch Bay took over, I want to say, Magic of Disney Animation in 2014, and this was during that whole time when, right before we were going to get the announcement of Galaxy's Edge. So Launch Bay was to kind of quench that appetite for people that wanted Star Wars in the parks, and Hollywood Studios was kind of the dumping grounds for all the Star Wars stuff. So they closed Magic of Disney Animation, put Launch Bay here, and now we are 7 years after, which, mind you, this attraction's been here, I think, 12 years, because this was 5 years before Galaxy's Edge even opened. And now it's 7 years since Galaxy's Edge opened, and we still have Launch Bay here. And I think, for the most part, people are wondering what they're going to do with the original characters from Star Wars, because they have pushed so hard not to put the original IP in Galaxy's Edge. I think they're going to do that at some point, because where else are you going to put, those kind of characters, right? Darth Vader and Chewbacca and all those types of characters. You really got to find a place to put them. And I wonder if there's a way, if they move Olaf into kind of where this area is, add some more of those Renaissance characters that some animation was done here. You add them to the meet and greet here, right? And then where Olaf is now is where you end up putting Chewbacca and Darth Vader, and kind of so maybe you put it closer to Star Tours, right? Which makes a lot of sense, and maybe that's their way of still keeping them out of Galaxy's Edge. Maybe they do that, or they finally do decide, you know what, well, instead of wasting space there where that Olaf meet and greet is, maybe that's time we add something else. We add, maybe wishful thinking, but you add an attraction or something like that in that space, which I don't find happening. They'll put another meet and greet in there. But they do have that option if they decide they want to put either Olaf in there, or they want to, what they really could do on the cheap, make an entire new kind of area there. I mean, Frozen Ever After, as popular as it is there a way you can take out Frozen Ever After, put something new in there, and then you have the attached meet and greet right next to it? That could be an option. I don't think that's one that Disney's necessarily ready to do, but it's something interesting nonetheless, and I think it would be, maybe something Disney would consider, even though Frozen Ever After is as popular as it is. Who knows? So that's kind of going to do it for today's video. What are your guys' thoughts on the new animation courtyard? I think it's going to be one of those things like everything else. I want to see what it looks like before I give full judgment, but I'm okay with it for the most part. If the context was, this is really where Monsters Inc. could have gone, and Disney decided not to do that, that definitely hurts me in the back of my head. I think a lot of people feel that way too. You just feel like this is, Muppets was supposed to stay where it was, and Monsters Inc. was supposed to come here. And I think there is that little bit of resentment for what they're doing here. But with that aside, I think the change is necessary, and it kind of makes me wonder going into D23, if they're announcing this now, what else are they going to be announcing? Because obviously they didn't think this was important, so they must be announcing something, right? Which is kind of exciting. They didn't have room on the docket to put something like this in here, so we'll see what happens. Anyways, that's going to do it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.